Hi everyone, welcome to a new video. I was going to show you Merlin, but he didn't want to be on camera. Hello everyone, welcome to a new video. Today we're going to be making some sewing machine covers because I have recently gotten a beautiful cat who is now 5 months old. His name is Merlin, and he is beautiful, but he is also a freaking terror. And a cat in a sewing room is something that I've dreaded for a very long time. I didn't know how other people managed it. And now I'm starting to learn that managing Merlin, please. Oh, look, Merlin. Look, baby. Look. Merlin. I know. But yeah, he likes to chew and touch and ruin everything that he can. And I do typically just have my sewing machines out because whatever project I'm working on, it's just easier to grab it and go. And I mean, you can get like proper, like brand made sewing machine covers, but I thought it'd be really good opportunity to make a small cute project, use some scrap fabric and just, yeah, make something really personal. So today we're going to be making some sewing machine covers. If you two don't want your sewing machines to, even if you don't have a cat, they're really practical because you shouldn't be leaving your machine out to gather dust or to be injured in any way, or like, it's way more susceptible for you to drop things on it or spill things on it. So yeah, today we're going to be making some sewing machine covers. Stay tuned. It should be a really easy project. This is definitely beginner friendly. All you really need is a machine and some scrap fabric. It's basically 2 quilted rectangles with a pocket. So I think we can get on and get to it. Okay, so for this project you only really need 2 measurements. You will need the width of your sewing machine, plus I would say about 1 inch or 2 on either side for ease. I think I'm going to do about 1 because I'd like there to be a gap here where the ties look a little bit more aesthetic. So I'll just measure exactly as it is plus 1 inch on either side. So I'm going to cut mine to be about 21, yeah, 2 inches on either side. And then the other measurement you will need is just, because this is meant to wrap around your machine, you kind of want to see where you want it to end and then just wrap her around your machine. So mine is going to be about 27 inches all the way around. So this is going to be the direction of your rectangle. This will be the width of your rectangle, and this will be the length of your rectangle going upwards. So 27 inches that way. If instead of bound edges, you would like to do turned over hems, just add seam allowance to that. But I'm going to be doing bound edges, so I don't need that. And that's really it. You're basically quilting one long rectangle. Okay, so your first step will be to cut out your pieces. I have here my outer fabric, and I have my lining, and I also have the wadding that I'm going to be quilting in between them. Just beware that of your dimensions, because I actually made a mistake when cutting mine out, and it almost had to be that the pattern would be running horizontally rather than vertically, which is what I wanted. So yeah, just double check it against your machine to make sure it fits. And now all we really have to do is sandwich the wadding in between the 2 layers of fabric. So if you have any piecing seams or whatever, just make sure that they're towards the inside. Then you put your wadding in the middle. I've got mine a little bit bigger just in case it shifts while sewing, because I don't have the most quilting experience, I'll be honest. And then you put your top fabric over it, like so, and then you just kind of have to match it up to the lining just to make sure it's all good. And then you have to mark the direction of your quilting. So in my case, I think I'm going to be doing a 1 inch wide quilting pattern diagonally, because I think that, to me, visually, that's what I like. So yeah, I'm going to mark according to the grain. I'm going to mark using my ruler, a 45-degree angle, so it's on the bias like this. And I'm going to do it from the very middle of the panel, and that will be my first line of stitching. And then I have a sewing machine guide, which I'll show you in a minute, which you can space to be an exact measure from the sewing needle, and that's going to be 1 inch wide. And then I'm just going to do rows until it's all done, and then I'm going to draw a line going the other way and then do it the other way. It should be pretty straightforward. So let's get to it. So this here is the little bar that I was telling you about. A lot of machines come with this, and if they don't, you can just buy it at most haberdashery shops. but it is just a little metal bar, and most machines should have a little slot at the back here where you can slide it through. Mine has a little hole and then a screw so you can tighten it to fit. And then basically you just adjust it so that it is the distance that you require for your quilting or stitching or whatever from the sewing foot. So in this case, I've measured 1.5 inches, and that I'm going to match up this with my previous line of stitching, which means that this line of stitching will be 1.5 inches parallel to that first one. And this is a really easy way so you don't have to mark lines. You could, if you don't have this, you can just mark your lines and sew, but I find this much easier, and it's a really easy thing to grab a hold of. So yeah, now I'm just going to sew all of the lines, and then I'm going to, once I have to do it on this side, you can flip the bar and just have it so that it's angled this way. So the line of stitching will be here, and then you can match it up so it's still 1.5 even. I'll show you. It makes more sense. It is now time to start thinking about your binding. Whether you want to use ribbon or tape or make your own bias binding or pre-bolt binding, all of these are valid options. You will need enough to go around the rectangle and to use as ties. For this, I decided to use some scraps of plain brown cotton and make my own bias tape that would contrast with the fabric I have. I made about 3-4 meters or so, and then I used some to bind and some to use as laces. Okay, so once everything's quilted and prepped, your next step is actually to decide if you would like a pocket. I've decided to add a pocket because I think it could be useful to keep, I usually have scissors out and things like that, and to keep it neatly away so that the cat can't get to it, because that's the whole point of me making these. And so I've just measured with this over my machine, which is right there. I've measured up to see how tall I'd like the pocket to be, and that came out to be 5 inches. So I've cut a 5-inch strip of the same fabric that is as wide as the length of the cover, the width of the cover. And I'm actually just going to, I'm not going to quilt this too, I'm just going to interface it for a little bit more stability because my outer fabric is super, super lightweight. And I've also cut the same out of the lining just so it's nicely finished on the inside. So after interfacing, I'll just pin them both together and pin them into place, and then I'm going to top stitch around and also make some dividers. I think I'm going to divide into 4 pockets. So I'll just stitch up like that. But I'm also going to bind the top edge of the pocket so that it's nicely finished. You can also just fold it inwards if you'd rather. I might do that, I might just hem it, we'll see. But yeah, that's just the next step, is to prepare the pocket, and then we can finish all the edges, and then it's nearly done. So I've just positioned my pocket and marked the delineations that I want to divide it into. Now my fabric actually has a direction, so this pattern goes vertically and I want it to wrap around the machine vertically. So that means there is a front side and a back side. If your fabric doesn't have that, don't worry about it, but I just wanted to make sure that I put the pattern going vertically on the actual cover itself and the pattern going vertically on the pocket. So now I just need to take this to the machine and I'm just going to top stitch these separations into place. Wait, where is it? 1, 2, 3, 4. So 3 smaller pockets and 2 larger ones at the end. And then I can work on the ties for it. The last step was to just pin the binding over the edges until it looks like this, and then I'm just going to top stitch it into place and it should be done, so we can have a look at the finished thing. Ta-da! It's done! I am so happy with it. I think it worked out really well. It's got 5 pockets just here, which at the moment I've just been using to keep things that I usually have loose on my desk. So sometimes I have my rotary cutter out or scissors or whatever. And because typically the sewing machine that I'm using at the moment for whatever project just sits here, it's a really nice, neat way to keep things organized. And I will also typically put my pin cushion just in here, and this just makes sure that Merlin can't get to it, can't get to any of these dangerous things that I can put away. But wait, there's more. Ta-da! In fact, I liked it so much that I made a second one for my other sewing machine that is at the moment out because of my PhD. I've got it set up for it. This is a Singer sewing machine. It's my really old one, this one, which does actually come with its own wooden cover, but it's just so bulky and awkward to keep around that I don't typically want to use it. And this just covers the thread and the bits enough that Merlin doesn't really bother touching any of it. And it also has 5 functional pockets. I made this one a little bit bigger because it doesn't have as sleek of a top here, so I think it needed a little bit more slack to go around. But yeah, overall, I'm really pleased with this project. I used mostly stuff from my stash, except for the outer fabric, obviously. But yeah, it was a really great project and I highly recommend it if you've got a messy cat around and you need to put stuff away. What a beautiful way to tidy up a sewing room. So yeah, thank you all very much for watching and I'll see you soon.